the real news.
I haven't seen you guys.
It's been a little while, yeah. We have two new guests, obviously, two new guests on the screen. You guys want to introduce yourselves one at a time? One at a time, please.
I shall go first.
There we go. Perfect.
The one with the worst internet of the bunch.
Thank you.
It is I.
Second worst,
I'm Oscar Sierra. I'm from Puerto Rico. I am in Puerto Rico right now, and it's awesome to be here.
Represent.
Awesome. Next.
All right. Hey guys, my name is Russell Pope. I'm from Huntsville, Alabama, and it's wonderful to be here with you all tonight.
Thank you, Senor Pope. Good to have you here. So this week we want to discuss something fairly simple, but with a lot of intricacies and complexities, and that is just the Torah portion. So, who wants to go first? Just something that kind of that you reflect on in the Torah portion, something that kind of jumped out at you. Anybody want to start with that?
Okay.
Shut you down, homie. Tito, go.
Oh.
I'm kidding. No, we actually did have an order agreed on. Alex, you want to say something first, right?
Yeah, something on your mind?
Well, I wanted to ask you guys, what do you guys thought of, when for Shavuot, you're supposed to give two bread with leaven, and so I wanted to pick your brains on why that was the case.
Why on two loaves?
Yeah, with 11.
That's a good question. Anybody have an opinion on that while I look it up? So there's no dead time. Anybody want to jump in? Russell, you want to jump in there on this one?
I'm actually curious to see what you find as well. I'm going to be looking something up as well.
I will speak in the meantime, saying words with no meaning, whilst you look for the answer, because that is a question that I have never even thought of. So I want to applaud you, sir.
Reading this, I've noticed there's a couple things that are a little weird because I also have a question that is really hard to answer, and it's similar. It's similar in a certain way to that one, where it seems a little off, or like a shell for 2 bread.
The thing is, I'm trying to do like a small quick clip for like the youth or whatever.
Yeah.
About the feast or whatever, Shavuot, and it was curious because you're not supposed to bring any leaven inside the temple because the representation of leaven is sin.
Right.
And so, I have a book here, and so it described the two loaves as basically being the Jewish people or Israel, and then the second loaf of bread will be the Gentiles. And so those 2 loaves of bread will represent basically the unification of Israel and the access that the Gentiles have now with through Yeshua. And so the leaven, which that's what I look for, was interesting to me because it represents sin, right? Or it's depicted as sin in Scripture. So, and you couldn't bring basically leaven into the temple, right?
I think you couldn't burn it on the altar.
Yeah. I have a comment if I may. Usually the first 3 feasts are named as one, right? When we're talking about Passover, unleavened bread, and first fruits, they're usually called, the Passover. They're usually just all summed up with Passover. But in midst of Passover, you have unleavened bread, right? And I'm just thinking of this now because you raised this question. So this has no study behind it. This is just me giving out a thought, right? So you have unleavened bread in the first process. And the first process is, mentioned as the process of redemption, right? Where the Lord, send the lamb so that he may dwell upon his people. And then you have Passover, and then you have the Shavuot, the next feast, which is 50 days later. And yes, usually leavening is put with sin, right? Leavening is usually tied to sin, but the Messiah also ties it with something else. He says the kingdom of heaven is like leavening because it will expand. because it keeps growing and it keeps growing. So first you have the redemption process, and then you have the process where leavening is brought forth of the expansion of the kingdom. And if then you bring it to the New Testament and you have the moving of the Holy Spirit in Shavuot with the Ruach HaKodesh in Shavuot with the disciples, where the Ruach of Elohim goes amongst the disciples, and there's a new awakening, if you want to put it that way, right?
Mhm.
So you have the kingdom of Elohim coming on earth and starting a process of expansion, which then brings forth what you thought of, where the two loaves represent the Israelite and the Gentiles, right? So it's suddenly you have the kingdom of heaven expanding on both the kingdom of Israel and amongst the Gentiles, and that is just what came to mind as with what you said.
But I think that's pretty interesting because when you try to mention like the feast to a lot of people, or a lot of new people, they're gonna tell you like it's just for the Jews. That's always the excuse that's given of why they don't have to keep it. Like, oh, it's just for the Jews. God only gave it to the Jews, and He didn't give it to the Gentiles. But that's the way they think. But then you see throughout, like your example, Alex, and the way you explained to Oscar, that clearly God wants to be involved with the nations, not just Israel. And many times when you read in the Bible, God wants Israel to be like a light to the nations, so that way they come to Him. So it's not just like this closed off thing. It's always been from the beginning, not just the New Testament, for God to branch out to the whole world.
Yeah.
As like Rico explained, last time when he was speaking to us, basically from the inside out, basically. So it starts basically with Israel, and it's supposed to spread from there, meaning the will of the Father into the four corners of the earth. But I just found it interesting, curious.
I was also gonna say that it also makes mention before it starts talking about all the feasts in chapter 23, specifically of Israel's duty for proclaiming the feast.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, and even in a lot of the prayers that are said during a lot of these feasts, it does mention the regathering of the people and the building of the kingdom and everything. So even all throughout all these feasts is that same message of unity and expansion and the unification.
Even though I have Torah portions related to Ezekiel 44, I believe, which is basically related to the coming temple.
Yeah,
and the celebration of the feast. Then
Yeah, it says Russell, you're right. It says here on the book, because the book that I have is basically a book I bought because it basically talks about the feast and then it connects them to Messiah.
Okay.
So it says here.
What's the book though? For all of our listeners, what's the book?
It is
Messiah and the Feast of Israel.
So it says here in the tabernacle and the temple, offerings with either leaven or honey could not be offered upon the altar, as we read in Leviticus 2:11. No, we're not praying. Huh?
I was gonna say, is that because, if I'm not mistaken, was that because like in the pagan temples they used to offer up leaven cakes? If I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, they did that, and a lot of other temples they did that.
So that makes sense why he would not want everybody else to do it. That way. There's no misunderstanding.
Yeah, misunderstanding it. Yeah, after reading, I've been reading a little bit of Jacob Milgram's The Leviticus book, and I'm trying to do it little by little because all these books that I've read, most of them are like they have information, but it's like a story type.
Yeah.
But the Leviticus one is more. I have to go to the text and see what he's talking about.
It's very scholarly.
Yeah.
It's very,
yeah. And so it's interesting how he connects ancient Near East cultures, and you can see how the Father is basically trying to mold Israel to basically eliminate those examples that they might have seen in the world at that time, and basically redefining them.
Yeah, he doesn't want any like similarities between his temple and the pagan temples. Right?
Exactly.
And I think there's like a misunderstanding when it comes to a lot of things that happen in the temple. Like for example, I think the big thing is like it says that there's no woman allowed in the temple, like in the Holy Scriptures.
Yeah,
a lot of people are they get upset. Like what's wrong?
They think it's like a sexist thing or something.
Yeah, like like a macho misogynist thing.
Yeah,
but it's not because of that. It's because in the pagan temples, women were usually like prostitutes.
They were
and stuff
high
like that.
priests or prostitutes, or they held high positions of power, but they usually was for temple prostitution.
Yeah, so he doesn't want anybody thinking that any woman that goes to the temple is a temple prostitute.
Exactly.
Like, no, he doesn't want anybody connecting anything between his temple and their temple.
Actually, and the same goes for later on in Leviticus. In the same portion, you read about how the very specific things the priests had to be and what they couldn't have, and a lot of those were like deformities or conditions. And so you see in a lot of the hieroglyphics from Egypt that a lot of the priests, some would be deformed, some would have like a withered leg, a withered arm, but they would still be allowed to serve. And so the idea that no, you have to be pure outside and in as a contradiction to a lot of the other ways of worship and practicing was actually pretty eye opening when I found that out, at least. So.
Yeah,
that's really cool. What it also mirrors is the list of disqualifications and blemishes for the sacrificial animals as well.
Yeah.
Oh, the priests and the animals mirror one another.
Yeah, that leads me into the question. Actually, okay, so here's my question. This is a weird one, but in Leviticus 22, right? By the way, I'm going to read this out of the King James because that's like the most widely known and it sounds the funniest. So Leviticus 22, you have verse 21, and it says, "And whosoever offereth a sacrifice of peace offerings unto the Lord to accomplish his vow or free will offering in beeves or sheep, it shall be perfect to be accepted. There shall be no blemish therein." Verse 22, "Blind or broken or maimed or having a wen or scurvy or scab, ye shall not offer these unto the Lord, nor make any offering by fire of them upon the altar unto the Lord." And then verse 23, which is the question I have, "Either a bullock or lamb that hath anything superfluous or lacking at his parts, that mayest thou offer for a free will offering, but for a vow it shall not be accepted." And then, and then just continues on with things that are not to be offered on the altar in the temple. But why does it make that one distinction for those two things, and then immediately go on like nothing's changed?
Okay. So, did someone else want to say something first?
Yeah, could go for it.
Yeah. Okay. So, so Jacob Milgram actually made a really interesting comment on that. So, the nature of a vow versus like a free will offering, right? So, a vow, you have. So, I think it said which one was it accepted for, and which one was it not?
It was accepted for free will, but not for a vow.
Right. Yeah. So for a free will, it's more spontaneous in nature. So it's like I want to go offer the sacrifice at the temple. Like the animal I have on hand is this one, and so it's more spontaneous, more immediate. It's not as premeditated, and so whereas with the vow, you have more time to find an animal which might be even more perfect, right?
Okay.
Whereas with the free will, it's very spontaneous, and you know, one limb being a little longer than the other is a very minor blemish when compared to other blemishes, right? It's like it's only really a blemish in regard to the other legs. It's a very minute thing. But if you have the time to really find something that's even better, right, then for a vow you should do that because you should be anticipating it.
Because the vow, I imagine to that, the vow is like you pretty much putting some type of guarantee to it, unlike the free will offering, where you just bring just your free will offering.
Right. Yeah.
And something I was reading from the same book for Jacob Milgram is like the connection he makes with the action of the offering, how it depicts how you are personally, internally approaching Elohim. It's not just a mere offering or sacrifice. It's something that describes how you are feeling or how you are approaching and honoring him. So I think that's important too.
If I may add, it's as Russell was saying, like the free will offering is something that comes from the heart and is spontaneous, right?
Mm-hmm.
There's no there is really no commandment that says that you have to, by obligation, present a free will offering. Other than all the offerings that you have to present, yes, you have to present them, but they're no longer categorized as a just something that you want to do. But then you have the one of a vow, which is mandatory, which is something that has to be given because it's no longer free will; it's of a vow. So, like as Russell is saying, yeah, there's premeditation behind it, Yeah, but not only that, it's demanded. You know, there are demands behind it because it's no longer something that you just want to do. It's something that the Lord demands of you. It's like, for example, like if you want to give suddenly, if, let's just say you're going around the temple and you have some money at hand. And you're like, you know what? I would like to give that money to the temple. And you're like, here you go. Let me just give you. I want you to have this because I know it's gonna help the temple. Here you go. You think they're gonna? Honestly, I know this isn't specified in the Torah, but I just want to give an example. It's like, yeah, I don't think they're gonna deny it. They're like, yeah, we could use this. Yeah, awesome, thank you. But suddenly the Lord says, no, no, no. You have to give half a shekel for the firstborn. That's mandatory. He's saying a specific amount in a specific way that has to be given. When suddenly, and the other one is, yeah, there's no law for it. You know, it's just you give it. And obviously, a sacrifice has to be in a specific way, but it's more lenient in that way.
I mean, I think that's still applicable today. Not about like animal sacrifices, but like you see, like in some churches, that they have an offering that you have to give to the church, or you have to plant a seed of how many dollars and stuff like that, and they tell you that it's essential, it's important, that you have to, even if maybe you don't have enough to like feed yourself or whatever, you got to do it because it's for God.
That's a lot of the big problem in all these like big like prosperity message churches, where people will go broke and bankrupt because they think they have to, because if not, they'll be a sinner.
Yeah, well, in the Bible, it says you can give what you have. It doesn't have to be like, if you want to give something to God, it doesn't have to be this giant thing. It's whatever you have on hand.
Yeah.
And I think that's a big misunderstanding, like in churches, because people try to compare offerings, and it's not about that. It's just about you giving to God.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there we go. Question answered.
Question answered. I think Alex's question was answered too. So we got 2 questions answered.
Anybody else?
Any else got a question?
Nope.
No.
All right. Cool. Thanks. All right. Thanks for watching, everybody. It's been
Great.
I mean,
Wait, give me
I was talking with Russell this morning before we started this thing, and he was mentioning how, before he mentions all the feasts of God, the first thing he mentions is the Sabbath.
Yep.
And he was talking about like it's because it's the most important out of all of them.
And by the way, I believe in the chapter it's classified with the rest of the feasts.
Mm-hmm.
So technically, it's a weekly feast.
It's a weekly feast.
It's a weekly feast.
I mean, if you want to talk about that, Russell, because you were mentioning a bunch of.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, man, school us. Do it.
I don't know if I'm in the school anymore.
What did I learn? What did I learn? Come on.
So one thing, I'm going to get to chapter 23 real quick. It's really interesting. Whenever it comes to the holy convocations, the Sabbath itself is a prologue to all of them. It's like before we're going to get into all the extra good stuff. Like we're going to talk about the Sabbath. And even though we're going to talk about all this other good stuff, you got one that's more important than all of them. And it's just as important, if not more. It's holier than all of them. And you do it every week. And the really interesting thing about this is that it is grounded in creation itself. It is the day that God himself rested. Some people, I think most people that keep the festival days, they have this idea that, Yom Kippur is the holiest day of the year, right?
Yeah.
And I would add the disclaimer, like, other than the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Because even in terms of breaking Yom Kippur, it says that the punishment is correct. Like you're cut off, so to speak. But it's like some type of spiritual punishment, like your line is cut off or something. It's a little ambiguous.
Yeah.
Right, but when we see people deliberately break the Shabbat, there's an even higher penalty on that, right? Like the man who was picking up sticks on the Sabbath.
Yeah.
Right, and so it's like, and even in this chapter, it calls Yom Kippur. It's like it calls it one of your Shabbats, like one of your days of rest, as opposed to like the day that God Himself rested in the creation week. So it starts off with the biggest of all of them, and not only is it the most important, but it from week to week, it is something you have with you, like perpetually.
And something that I also say is the day of Yom Kippur, even in the chapters, classified as pretty much like a day of atonement compared to the other ones. The other ones are pretty much classified as feast directly. But although Yom Kippur is in the chapter, which it's basically about the feast, it's not necessarily classified as an actual feast day. It's the Day of Atonement. It's the Day of
Day of
Reverence,
remembrance.
but it's not pretty much a feast, just like you will say Sukkot or Shavuot or unleavened bread.
It's not really meant to be celebrated because it's not a day of celebration. It's a day of mourning, a day
Yeah.
of self-reflection. But you know what's really sad is you make a lot of good points saying that the Sabbath is one of the most, if not the most important feasts we need to have and keep and maintain. Because not only everything you've said, because it's all valid, it's all very important points, but also that's what distinguishes us from the rest of the world. The sad part is a lot of people, that's like the biggest thing they deny. That's the first thing.
The biggest obstacle.
It's the weirdest thing when it's really not that big of a deal. And the tough part is we've all been guilty at some point of devaluing it because we didn't fully understand its importance.
Because I think when we all started out, like we heard that it was like a day off, you know, that we just don't work.
Yeah.
So we all start off just like, you know, relaxing at our houses, doing whatever.
Yeah.
But as we progress, we start realizing how important it actually is. Like it's a time that's set apart for you to spend time with God essentially and focus on God and read the Bible, read the Torah portion. It's supposed to be centered on God.
It's not just a Saturday. It's not just a Friday night. It's meant to be completely something separate from what you do the rest of the week.
And I think that's what people miss. Like there's like some people that they look at the Sabbath and they see that we just have the day off and like, oh, okay, so they just have the day off, so they go out to the park or something like that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But they're missing the part where, you know, it's actually like a day for us to focus on God. It's not just about having a day off.
And it's rooted in such good intentions, but people use it to divide congregations and people alienate family members. It's the weirdest thing.
Yeah.
And I will add to that, like many of the traditions come from that in the sense where like for example, Leviticus chapter 19:30 and Leviticus 26:2, basically those two verses say the exact same thing. And it basically says, you must keep my Sabbaths and reverence my sanctuary. I am the Lord. Basically, it's putting the Shabbat to the level of the tabernacle in that case, and later the temple. So, and basically the tabernacle and the temple is pretty much the guide of Israel to stay pure and keep the holiness of God and get near to God. So it just shows to the level of the feast and the Shabbat.
And I mean, he says it's important because for God, he wants to really spend time with you. That's why he puts it so high importance. And I don't look at it from that perspective.
They see it as a burden, really.
Yeah, it's like
some people do. Some people do.
Some people, an
obligation.
Like Saturday, I go out with my friends and stuff like that. Like I don't want to stay and read the Bible and stuff like that.
Exactly.
I mean, you can do a podcast like we're doing, right, and talk about the Bible.
Right, there you go. This is a great use of every podcast.
From my experience, when I started, I was interested in the traditional. How do you? Because to me, it was presented that this is Elohim's day. This is the day where God wants you to separate yourself, and so for me, it was interesting. You know what I mean? Because he does say that this is his day that he basically rested and separated for us to congregate and come to him. But when I read, I remember I read Dina Dai's book, The Temple Revelation, I think it was. And she basically says that when we on Shabbat do the Kiddush and we sit at the table and we receive the Sabbath, we basically proclaim to the world that Yehovah Elohim is the one and only, that he is the God that is reigning in the heavens and in the earth. And because of Yeshua, our Messiah, we have access to that. And when I saw that, it's like, why not honor him? You know what I mean? Why not? I sometimes I stop. Sometimes I pray and I say Father, but I've been trying to do my best to start approaching him as King, because I feel like we have to build the respect factor and the reverence factor before we can even get to that level where we feel comfortable to call him Father or
I mean, that's a big problem that you see, like in some places, like you go and they're praying, they're like, I demand, I declare in the name of Jesus that this will happen. I demand, and it's not like, I don't know, like I don't want to say that they don't have respect for God, but they don't understand like the whole.
They've lost the kingly reverence for the Father. And the thing is, when you recognize him from Father to King, that's a big step in your own maturity. because now you're seeing him less as a father figure and more as, okay, you're the head honcho, you're the king, I am the servant, I will now serve.
Mhm.
Right? And that's
But
it's definitely a step up from how a lot of people in the beginning see it, and that's just my father, you love me in like a very personal relationship, and it is that, but it also goes beyond that.
Mhm.
But if
Right,
yeah,
yeah.
exactly. Yeah, if I may add to that, right? I think it's very healthy to recognize him as a king. It's very important to do that because he is that, and he deserves respect. But if I may add a little bit to what you're saying, Alex, and
Mhm.
add to what Rico is saying, is that though we recognize him as king, the connection that he himself, with his authority, has built as through Yeshua,
Mhm.
giving us adoption and giving us a unity through relationship can't be ignored either.
Oh no, yeah, no.
You see it a lot where people, totally detach themselves from the connection of son and father that Elohim gives to you. And he offered that passageway, through Yeshua to us. And I think that we should take it upon ourselves to, yes, be respectful, because we can never say what Jonathan said. We can't be like, I have more authority than you, and
Exactly.
let me just splay onto the world. No, it's not that. But Yeshua says to himself, and he says to his disciple, you know, if a son asks a father for bread, would a father give him stone? And he says, of course not. What type of father would do that? But then he says, how much so the Father in heaven? Like, there is still this, even though he's king, there is very much so this relationship of children where he is the one who desires connection with us, and we desire connection with him, and we should take
Yeah.
advantage of it, in quotation marks. Take advantage, not
Yeah.
in the sense of I declare. No, it's like, no, you're my father. And when you have a fatherly connection, there's this opportunity of opening up. I wouldn't say to a president, I wouldn't say my deepest, darkest secrets. You know, I wouldn't say that to a president, but
Yeah.
I would say it to my father.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's like, yeah. Even though I'm your king, I'm also your father. So open yourself up to me and come seek me as a father. And the
Exactly.
father will do more than a king, because the father will make sure that you do have something to eat, where a king not necessarily.
Exactly.
So to do, we should take advantage of that, but still recognize that he is a king, and never ever let that be like taken to the side.
I feel like our Messiah found the balance. I think he found the balance in how we not only give him his honor as a king, but also his reverence as our father and as our provider, because he is our provider. We depend on him. You know what I mean? And so I just feel like my
Okay.
point is mostly as you could say cultural, right? Because we see religion, we see feelings. I mean, I've spoken to many people, and they say I don't have to congregate to demonstrate that I love God,
Yeah, I've seen it too.
right? And they have all these personal thoughts and opinions, and they think that they can personally do and approach God however they want, is because they have gave them the father figure
Mhm.
and the openness figure
Yeah.
without letting them understand first. Okay, listen, you have to approach him this way because this is how because he does it. That's why I love. I'm starting to love the the Leviticus, because he's basically telling you, listen, this is how I want you to approach me.
Mhm.
Mhm.
Right? It's not about that I don't want you to come to me, but I want you to understand that I'm holy, and for you to get close to me, this is how you have to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
And I will listen to you, but I need you to follow what I have to say. You know what I'm saying? What I have to set
yeah, I
for you.
do.
But what I think is funny, though, not funny, but think about a king and a father. The similarity is that they both demand a level of respect
Mm-hmm.
and a way of approaching. So these people that say that, oh, I can talk to God, any way I want, and I can do whatever I want. and they wouldn't do that to their own father.
Yeah,
they
most
still have,
wouldn't do that to their own father.
Yeah, they have some respect for their own physical father.
Yeah.
So if you understand that between your own father, you know, how can you approach God even less than your own father? You know, because you wouldn't talk to your father in a disrespectful manner. There's still a way that you have to approach and ask and things like that.
I think, like, well, it's again, it's a real shame because I don't really want to bash on the Christian church, but the problem is they never, during that transition from then till now, throughout all of Christianity, they've lost the idea of the different aspects of the Father, right? So you have the great King, you have the Destroyer, you have the Father, you have the Lawmaker. You have different aspects of Father of Yahweh, and even have different names that are represented: Elohim, Adonai, El Shaddai, and each one is meant to represent an aspect of Him. It's the same thing with any one of us. We have there's a version of us that is happy, a version of us that we have around our friends, a version of us that we have around our parents, a version of there's different. We're the same person, but we have different aspects to us that make us more complex and make us more unique. And it's the same with Adonai. He has different ways of handling different situations, right? As we see throughout the entire Torah. And so when you lose the idea of that, you think of him only as this one aspect, and that's the Father. And when you think of him that way, you lose that fear of him as being the King.
It's just like this happy, jolly guy.
Yeah, it's Buddy Jesus, and that's not, and that's the
literally,
literally.
And that's where the problem is born.
Exactly.
But to support Oscar's point, in John 20, verse 17, Yeshua tells Miriam that he has to go to his father, who is Miriam's father, and his Elohim, who is Miriam's Elohim. So he basically lets her know, listen, by you accepting me, he is your father as well, and he is your Elohim. So
one thing
that's what. Yeah, my bad, Russell. Go.
One thing I would like to add to this, and this is something where I think Christianity, they nail it on the head, is in how we treat our brethren as children of the Father, who is the King, right? I think Christianity really does understand the love aspect of it, but I think really what we're talking about with the Father and the King is something that the Hebrew roots movement really needs right now, because if our Father is the King, we're coming out of traditional Christianity, where we really see the Father as he's Abba, he's Father, and we love him and we relate to him and we want a relationship with him. That's great. But whenever we come to recognize him as the King, there's this other level of respect that we need to recognize, and part of that respect is how we treat his other children, right? Exactly. Because if they're children of the King, then they're royalty, just like you are, by the way, right? And so if they're royalty in the kingdom of God, then you should respect your brother, because they have value. They're a child of the King, just like you are.
We're all servants of the same King.
So yeah,
and that's exactly it.
And it even
when you have so much factionalism from where we came from to now, people begin to bring that same kind of factionalism in here, and now it's a very us versus them mentality where we believe this certain way. You don't. We can't really fellowship now. I can't respect you because we don't see eye to eye.
And it even extends farther than that.
No, yeah.
I'm sorry, Tito. I kind of caught you a little bit. But when you see when you see the Lord has the Father has this mentality of, hey, you treat me with respect and just recognize me as such. But also recognize me, as Russell is saying, I'm king over all. And that extends more than just us, right? Mm-hmm. When you see that in the law, there's this repetition that keeps, pardon, myself, it just keeps repeating itself as, hey, treat them well because you yourself were such. You were a slave in Egypt. So treat them with love, hey, okay? Compassion. Yeah. And it's just over and over again. Hey, I know that you're you, and I know that you think something of yourself, but remember that I brought you from a place. And remember that since I brought you from the place, treat everyone with compassion. And when you see, in the book of Isaiah where, the Lord is like, hey, I don't ask for you, I don't want your sacrifices. I don't want none of that. And then you read the rest of the verse, he's talking to, hey, your sacrifices would mean something if you would give mercy to people. But you don't.
It's true.
So it's all like, yeah, like as Russell was saying, it's there's such a emphasis on, hey, focus also not just on my relationship with you, but your relationship with everyone around you, and make sure that you're giving compassion to everybody. Because who are you if like you pass by someone who is desperate and in need, and you're coming to me? That means nothing to me if you don't stop and give blessings and mercy to that person. And I totally agree with what you're saying, Russell. Honestly.
I was gonna say like three quick things based in the overall conversation. One of them was about getting close, going a little bit back, is so that's one of the reasons you have the feast, right? 3 times a year, you're supposed to come up and bring your best to the feast. And we know that in ancient times, the feasts are based in agriculture, and they're based on animals, right? And overall, and the sheep and the herd and all that stuff. So,
Yeah.
and basically in ancient times, a family's wealth was measured by that. So basically, God has basically blessed you with your herd, with your agriculture, your fruits, and everything, and you basically are supposed to come up to Jerusalem, the place is chosen, and pretty much offer and bring what He's given to you, so you can partake with you and all of your brethren. Just like then what Russell was mentioning in regards to unity, when they came up those 3 times a year, all the tribes were supposed to come up. But yet all the tribes, some tribes were larger than the other ones. Like Benjamin was a small tribe, then you might have Judah, big tribe, and whatnot. But they were all supposed to be treated equally. And we see an issue with this, for example, when they're not treated equally, in the story of Shiloh, where they basically almost decimated the whole tribe of Benjamin, and then they were supposed to come back for the feast. And how can they come to the feast when they basically destroyed the whole tribe,
Yeah.
And then they also had some issues that went beyond that, where the Shiloh was destroyed, as we know. And then we have the prophet Samuel come along.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
It's funny when you put that into perspective, when you look back on Exodus, and actually from Exodus into Deuteronomy, that's one of the lines that's like repeated the most to the children of Israel is, I am the Lord your God who brought you forth from the land of Egypt. To remind you, you used to be slaves. You're not going that good. Straighten up. Over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
And that just goes to show you the heart of people in general is, even when you come from a very humble place, at some point you may end up forgetting it and turning into what you were fighting against.
I mean, that's why I think we have like a weekly Sabbath, because it's like a constant reminder. Because in a busy life, you get distracted and you put things aside.
Exactly.
And if it wasn't for the Sabbath, I don't think we'd be straying away from God, but we would put him a little bit, on the shelf.
It would definitely
Can I
increment further and further onto the back burner.
Yeah. If I may, this is this exact topic that I personally wanted to talk about when talking about Leviticus 23, is the fact of remembrance. I told some of you guys that I've been reading the Rational Bible by Dennis Prager and the Book of Exodus, right?
How is that? Is it good?
When it's so far what I've read, it's a lot of opinionated things, but it's really cool, and it's really insightful in many ways. And he talks about that. I posted on my Facebook not too long ago. I said, what are we if not our memories? And that thought came from the book, because he's saying, hey, it's all about what we remember. And that's why the Lord is so specific in saying, hey, remember the Sabbath, remember the Passover, because I brought you out of Egypt. Remember me, and remember, because our memory is the one that guides us and gives our conscience meaning. Like and he states in the book, he's like, if you forget all your memory, you'd cease to exist as a person, and you become someone totally new, because you are defined by your experiences.
Yeah.
And the reason that the Lord is like, hey, remember these things, right? And one of the things he also mentions in this book, which again, it's opinionated, and it might not be 100% accurate, because it is his opinion. He says there are two words for people in Hebrew, and it's am and goy. And he says that when again, it's his opinion, right? When they use the word it's referring to a blood lineage or something ancestrally. And when he refers to goy, he refers to a people with a political end or a political goal, not necessarily from the same descendants. And then he compares and says, "Hey, when the Lord unites us as a people, he says, I want you to be a holy nation." That phrase, holy nation, is not a holy it's a holy goy. So he's saying, hey, it's not about the bloodline. It's about the political aspect. And how do we, who are so far from Israel, who are not, there's no temple now. How do we combine with this political aspect? Remembrance.
Remembrance.
If you think about it,
That's why it's so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
That's why the Jewish people, they've been keeping this together for so long. If it wasn't for the Jewish people, we wouldn't have a lot of the things that we do today, like the Kiddush and things like that.
Yeah.
Identity.
It would be kind of lost. Yeah,
we wouldn't have the Torah. We would not have the Torah
No.
if it weren't for them. Like when you think of how it's been maintained.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah,
what's
for sure.
funny, all this links right back into the first century to what Yeshua was really dealing with, and that was this almost like this exact topic where people were valuing your lineage, what tribe you were in. If you were outside of that, you were a dog, you were filthy, you weren't allowed in. The covenant's not for you. Don't even bother. And so to have that much gatekeeping at that level, it's it's not good no matter who you are, whether you're Judah or you're a boy. It doesn't matter. So yeah, it all kind of threads this way through the whole Bible.
I think that's why God, makes it so important for you to keep these feasts every year throughout your life. Have a weekly Sabbath, so that way you don't lose your identity and you don't forget about God, and
Exactly.
you always have this constant reminder to do good and be on your best behavior and things like that. And
Definitely.
Christianity and other churches, they have, in a way, a system like that, but it's not that solid,
Yeah.
Because the problem is, like Alex said, it gets to where people form their own opinions
Exactly.
and thoughts, and well, if you follow God's structure, it's a good foundation that you can't move.
Yeah, if you use, I personally like to use common sense, and one thing that people that follow religious personal opinion belief, that's what I call it, is that they refute the traditions, let's
Yeah.
say of Israel or the Jewish people, right? And they, by them doing that, they decide, okay, I'm not gonna do what you're saying because X and Y, whatever, and I'm gonna do my own thing. Which, if you look at it, you're doing the same thing they're doing. The only difference is that they have authority to implement and interpret the Torah as long as they are holding themselves to it. And, it cannot go above the word. And so I feel like the more we understand that, and we try to understand the culture, and like Rico and Walter and all these teachers help us do, is understand the history of the time, and understand the political scheme, and the caste system, and why certain leaders were treating certain people a certain type of way. That when Yeshua comes, he basically is trying to tell us, listen, is it, as long as you are morally trying to be morally pure, and morally purify yourself, basically, and separate yourself when it comes to your community, right? Because that's what Yeshua basically came to teach us. I mean, we had the mechanics of it,
Yeah.
or they did. I mean, how to approach him. Where do you have to go? You have the temple. Okay, you have to offer this. You have to do. So they had everything that they had to do, but what was missing was the intention.
It was the heart and soul that was missing.
Yes. And so I feel like Russell says that, it pointed out earlier that, Christianity has the commodity, the unity, but Judaism has the structure and how we're supposed to do things. So us, we're in the middle, right? We're accepting the commodity and the feeling and the brotherhood, and at the same time we're accepting the structure because it's what is implemented.
Yeah, we're meant to be the bridge between both, since we have both attributes. Whether we are or not is up for debate at the moment. But that's our mandate. That's what
we're trying to do. What we're trying to do.
Exactly.
So talking about, how should we think about things, the heart that we should have about things, right, and keeping these commandments with this structure. So in terms of, in approaching new people who are coming into this movement, right, a lot of people are like, okay, I get the Torah, like I get I should do it, like, so what's the heart that I should have about it, right? How should I think about, what should I think about these things? Like, how should I feel about it? Because, it makes sense, like I should stop working on Shabbat, but how should I feel about that? Like, can I ask the question to all of y'all? Like, what does it mean to you to like keep the Shabbat, to rest on it? How do you feel? How do you approach it? What does that mean in your mind? Is it just a cessation from work, or is it something much more?
So connection for me personally, it's a connection to God. I mean, all week we're just busy doing random stuff and stuff. Sometimes it's even pointless. Either be just working, either be playing a video game, either be just talking between friends, talking things we should not be talking about at times and whatnot. And the Shabbat comes around and it just opens that space for you to leave all that behind and get connected to God. I mean, there's people that they have maybe more time to study throughout the week, but maybe others don't. So then you have Shabbat. You're able to catch up, read the portion, or study another topic that draws you near to God. So I see it as pretty much like the day that's above all the days out of the week, where you're able to stop everything and like put a hold on time from Friday night to Saturday night.
Go ahead, Oscar.
If I may. Also, give my opinion on it. It's me as the United States not had a quarantine as strict as Puerto Rico has. During this pandemic, Puerto Rico has acted quickly, which I applauded for. It doesn't do a lot of things good, the government, I mean, but it acted really quick. As soon as it came up, the governor was like, hey, shut everything down. Everything is out. Everything is done.
Including the internet.
But, except that, of course, it's Puerto Rico. You can't expect everything. But, everything ceased, which is very, very good and very cool. But it put me in a place where I think about exactly what you're asking now, Russell, is because, Shabbat is suddenly, as Tito is saying, is a seasoning of your daily routines of going to work and etc. What happens when you're not working at all? Like, what does it become to you? Like I'm literally, my day-to-day is, I study a little bit, but I don't, like the classes that I'm taking right now don't really force me out of comfort where I'm like, oh, I gotta study my butt off or anything like that. So I feel like I'm on vacation. Like I'm on summer break basically. So suddenly I'm doing nothing every day, and suddenly Shabbat comes and it's another day to do nothing. So it can't be like, it can't just be the breaking of of your daily routine. Because if you're a person like me, if you're
frozen.
Froze.
The Puerto Rican government, they shut him down. He was speaking too much truth.
That's a really terrifying skill, by the way.
Well, until he comes.
There he is.
You froze, Oscar.
We lost all. We didn't catch any of that.
You look like a Minecraft pixels, man.
What was the last part you heard, so I can continue from then?
About breaking your daily routine. It's not just that.
And that a person like
right,
you.
It's okay. So breaking the daily routine is not just ceasing. It has to be more than that, because, for example, if you're let's just say you're a stay-at-home mom, which they work their butt off at home, but like Shabbat usually is associated with not buying anything outside of the house.
Yeah.
Like don't buy, don't. So suddenly, like, how does she define Shabbat, other than just not cleaning the dishes? How does she define Shabbat? So how do we define Shabbat when we don't have these things? It's more than just not working. It's more than just not buying. It's as Tito is saying, it's moments of head. Unlike other religions, where men desires to seek God, Shabbat is the day where God desires that we seek Him. it's not about men going. It's not about men's desire. It's about his desire for men to go to him.
Exactly.
And he says, "You see everything. You come to me and you seek me out." So it becomes this day of the heavens opening upon us, and the call of the Father amongst. Imagine this, and it's a weekday. It's a weekend for you. You're a child. You're playing outside. You're doing your daily thing. You know, you're playing bicycle ball. And your father says, "Hey, at 6 o'clock you will come home." Well, every Shabbat is that at 6 o'clock, and every 6 a.m. your father stands at the door and says, "Son, oh, did I freeze again?"
Yeah.
No, we heard everything.
We heard everything.
Yeah.
But you're just stuck like you just say Alex Jonesing. You're just
okay. Okay, cool. Okay, so at 6 o'clock, that being the Shabbat,
right.
the father stands at the door and calls to his children to come home. That's what Shabbat is. And we should not ignore that call, and we should run home. That's the moment when we get to run home and enjoy eating with the family and just speaking to our family and being with our dad, father, our king. That's what Shabbat is.
Yeah. I mean, like Brad Scott says, the Torah is about a family, house, and a piece of land, you know?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Russell, what do you think?
I think there's a lot of things to it. You know, what Oscar's saying is, and what y'all are saying about, like, you know, the family, right? That's such an important part. You know, I lived in Israel for about 13 months, and one of the biggest things that stood out to me about how Shabbat is kept, it's like the day where you unplug, where you unplug yourself from everything that's going on in the world, and you pour yourself into your family and your community, right? Here in Leviticus 23, in this week's portion, we read that it is it's a Sabbath of solemn rest, a holy convocation, right? So you get together. It's not just you, like you and our independent little
circle,
like self-righteousness, right? Like I'm keeping the Sabbath by myself. Like everyone else can just go away. You know, it's like, you know, you get together with people and you praise God together. You know, if anything, if you're getting together and convocating with people, you would do this on the Shabbat, you know, with your family, with your friends. You know, you get a group together and you praise God. You know, it's a day where it's set aside for the nation to rest together in unity, and not a day of division, but a day of coming together. And it's this day where you can unplug from everything that you're worrying about. One thing that always has struck me as odd, as it's preached traditionally in Christianity, is that, you know, the commandments of God are burdensome, right? And that the Sabbath particularly is burdensome, where in reality it's like, hey, I want you to take a break. And it's like, I'm not going to take a break. Like, how dare you tell me to take a break? Right? Yeah. It's like here, I'm giving you a vacation once a week. It's like, how dare you give me a vacation? I don't want that. It's burdensome.
I don't want
right?
this religiously sanctioned day off. Get out of here.
A day that I can meet with you. What?
Yeah, and so it's like, I feel like in today's world, it's easier to think that way than it was in the ancient world. And in the ancient world, this idea of the Sabbath is revolutionary.
Yeah.
Right? Like today, a weekend is a given concept for us. Like we take the weekend for granted, that we get off of work and we hang out and go to the movies and everything. But in the ancient world, you know, it's like day after day, you work yourself into the ground. And think about, you know, Israel was in a place of slavery, and then God's like, hey, that day of the week that I stopped and I rested, it's like, I want you to rest with me on that day. And it's like, wow, really? We're slaves. Like, you're giving us a break? It's like, yeah. Like, I'm giving you a break, and I want you to, and like, you're resting with me, the King of the universe. You're royalty in doing that.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh wow, you know, yeah. It's like I never would have thought that. Like I found keeping God's day of rest gave me value as much as it's honoring God's kingship at the same time.
It's like a form of equity.
Yeah, really.
Yeah,
like
exactly.
to that I imagine, and this is just my imagination going a little bit wild, but like I just imagine creation. You know, you have Adam; he's a typology of humanity, and you have God creates creation through the 6 days, and then afterwards he creates man, and then he rules over on the seventh day, right? And I just imagine Adam work in the garden every day, and then on the Shabbat he gets basically to sit down and basically admire together with the Creator the creation that was made. You know, that's just what I imagine. I imagine just like this place that like the most beautiful thing that just goes beyond our thoughts, like we can even imagine. And he's getting to work. He's getting to have a great time, sow the land and everything. Just that the seventh day comes around, and he's able just to connect directly with God and just enjoy together the creation.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've always seen the Shabbat as almost like a type and shadow of the temple, right? So it's not only a day of rest; it's a day to renew your bonds with God, right? It's a day of the week where, okay, I know I messed up. I know I did this. Shabbat is the day I'm going to come forward. I have nothing else to do. I'm going to spend it's 100% of my energy and concentration into communing with God in this way, coming with my family, rejoicing together and renewing our bonds for the week to come, and being better for the next week, and then trying again and again and again and again.
Yeah, and something that Judaism does a lot to that is that that I think is pretty nice. Like, it doesn't mean they have to do it or we have to do it to that level, but I think it's a concept that they have is that you pretty much also have all week to pretty much in your prayers ask things from God, but pretty much when Shabbat comes around, you pretty much only thank God for everything He's given to you.
Exactly, yeah.
Like even in that prayers and the shacharit and all the prayers that are done throughout the Shabbat, they're pretty much cut in half. You will think that on Shabbat you pray for longer, which
Yeah,
you pray
that's
couple
true.
of songs, but like that core is still slashed in half because you're not requesting things for you. You're pretty much also
it does kind of make sense though.
Yeah,
I noticed that when I did the prayer.
It does make sense when all week you asking for things and you're blessed all week, and then like there's this one day where you just do nothing but thank Him for everything you got and everything you will get.
That's a nice aspect that I like about the Jewish community is that they do, have they have reverence for God in a special way, different than the churches do.
Yeah, that's definitely preserved.
Like I remember,
it's counterintuitive.
yeah, because I remember we went to this restaurant with my family, and on the utensils there was like this little bag that came with the utensils, and on the back it has different prayers for the food, and it had like Catholic, I think Pentecostal or Protestant, and then Jewish. And the Catholic and the Protestant, they thank God for the food, and they ask God to bless the food, and bless them, keep them healthy and stuff like that. But the Jewish prayer was thanking God for the food, and thanking Him personally, for providing.
Yeah,
and that's a very nice, different point of view.
It's really overlooked in some aspects.
Yeah, because it's true. How did you get the food in the first place? Because He gave it to you.
No, yeah. It's like literally every Christian meal I've been in, it's Father, bless this food.
Yeah.
Jewish thought, Father, we bless you for this food.
Exactly.
Such a small change.
Hey, he gave it to you, blessed it. He grew.
Hey, Alex, did you get your stay yet?
Well, John, I thought you were gonna go after Rico.
Oh,
you just have to go like this next time.
Yeah, raise your hand.
Raise it right to the camera, like cover the camera with your hand.
Well, when I started out like years ago with my folks, like it was kind of like if in the beginning we didn't know what we were doing because
nobody does.
The good thing about the Jewish community is that they preserved a lot of things because otherwise we wouldn't know how to keep these feasts or the Sabbath because we didn't have a structure in the beginning. I mean, we did have the bread and the wine, but that's all that we did. And then we'd read. Well, I don't even think we read the Torah portion in the beginning because we didn't know exactly what to do. But as time progressed, things became more organized. And the more organized you get, the more you make it special,
Yeah.
Like Oscar said, because it's not just about not working and not buying and stuff like that. It's like a time set apart for God. It's not about you.
Yeah,
it's about God.
Yeah.
And I think that's the thing that people don't understand when I try to explain the Sabbath to them. They think it's like, oh, you get to have a day off and that's it, and I don't work and stuff. Like, no, it's not. It's about God. Like, he wants me to spend time with him. He wants me to learn about him. He wants me to spend time with him, with my friends and my family, you know, in the community. It's cool, you know, and you have your whole 6 days a week where you work till you know, you bust your butt and stuff, and then on Friday night you come home tired, coming from all that chaos that was outside, and then you come and you set everything up and you have like this peace in a way, and with your family and your household, and you guys, you know, talk about the portion and things like that. It's very nice, and I think that's what's missing, and like the in the Christian community and stuff like that. It's the structure part, like Alex said, you know, because they have the brotherly love aspect down to the T. That's true, and that's always going to be good. But they don't have that structure that's necessary, you know, because you know you can ask them, okay, like, you know, how do you love God? Because they'd be like, oh, you know, I love God. I'll do anything for God. Well, what do you do exactly? What is it that He asks you to do? And I think that's the thing that they're missing and they don't understand. You know, the Bible tells you exactly what He wants. Because one thing that I would see at a lot of churches, which was sad, was that they would pray to God, you know, like, what do you want from me? Like, what do you want me to give you? You know, like,
Just read the book.
just read the book. It tells you exactly what He wants.
Yo,
You don't have to figure things out.
I
You don't
had
have
that
to
moment.
pray like 10 times a week. You don't have to sow a seed of $1,000 to figure out what He wants. It tells you exactly there. And if you do it, you make Him happy. And on top of that, it's very simple if you think about it. It's nothing crazy. You don't have to jump through these hoops. It's the most simplest thing to make Him happy. And, you know, it's awesome, you know.
To add to your point, I was a devoted Christian when I was, you know, middle school to high school, like full on into it. And
Yeah.
I remember specifically this one moment where I had graduated high school and I was in the process of choosing what career path to take. And I wanted to become a pastor. And I remember that I was telling my father that I wanted to go into a school of that sort, of worship, a school of worship, a school of theology, where they would teach you how to take upon leadership and everything.
Yeah.
And my father was saying, that's not a good idea. You should go to regular school. And I remember sitting in my sofa, bawling my eyes out, like full on desperation. And I was like, I just want to know what God wants out of me. What does He want me to do? And I just want that. And it's because they don't teach that.
They don't.
And everyone, like in Christianity, I think, at least in my experience, is that to reach God's goal, you have to be a leader. Like you, like once you're there, you reached it. But it's not that way. Not everyone's Moses.
Yeah.
Right?
Otherwise,
The
you're just
important
like
thing is that you
Yeah.
keep Torah.
It's fine. That's why
As
everyone.
long as you walk and according.
Yeah, that's why everyone there's hungry.
Yeah, but
That's the most common thing they say. I'm starving. I'm hungry. I'm hungry. It's because no one's being fed.
But that's what happens. Like Alex said, a lot of people form their own opinions and their own way of doing things because they, like Oscar said,
It's the fill in the blanks.
they weren't taught, so they're guessing.
Yeah.
And they're guessing in different ways. You know?
Which quick thing. I want to ask you guys something. From your first Shabbat until last Shabbat, let me know if this isn't just me. Did your first Shabbat when you came into this? With your first Shabbat, did that last an eternity because you don't know what to do? Like all right, I'm gonna read the portion. I read the portion. I had the bread and the wine.
And then
Now what?
Sure.
I got 23
I'm gonna
hours.
be honest.
Left. Oh God, what am I gonna do now?
My first Shabbat was easy. It's the ones that came after, because like the first week I was like, hey, let me just listen to Jim Staley. But after I listened to everything Jim Staley had to say, I was like, what do I do now?
Yeah, exactly. That lasts like 7-8 hours, and now you have like another day. Oh,
when
great.
you drop in that new video, Staley.
Email him real quick. Hey Staley.
I know.
Just tweet at him. It's fine. At Staley.
What about you, Alex? Because if people don't know, I don't know if we mentioned this, but you're fairly new to all this.
Yeah.
I think it's like what, a year and a half or something like that.
No, it's 2 years.
Yeah,
It's
like
2 years.
2 years.
over 2 years
Damn,
actually. Yeah.
time flies,
Yeah.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know. It went by fast, right?
But by the
He
way,
has a baby
Uh,
now. He has a cute baby. So
spots.
Yeah, it
Time,
does.
yeah, time really
When you
flies.
go by Sabbath,
Shabbat.
now
Super
I
fast.
feel like I go by Shabbat to Shabbat.
Yeah,
Like,
I
yeah.
think that's
The
pretty
way I
fast.
look at the week is totally different than before.
yeah.
Like the months fly by now because there's only technically like 4 days in the week then when you count it that way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's crazy. But what about you, Alex? Like, how did it start with the first one, and how do you feel about it now?
Well, for me, um, uh, for me, it was more emotional.
Mm.
Meaning, well, most of you know my story. The only one that doesn't is Russell. But Russell one day might
Someday,
might
Russell.
might
He's gonna
know.
write an audio book.
No, dude.
Yeah.
He's gonna write
Dedicate it to Russell, please.
The story of my life.
By Alex Hernandez.
No, but yeah, my first or my experience with Shabbat or my view of Shabbat is it's emotional because obviously my process was very different, and so I felt like I had a negative uh, presentation of it, and so for me in my course of getting to know the Father in my own way, meaning that He opened His doors for me. I feel like He basically brought honor to me. You know what I mean? I feel like He brought honor to my name,
Lifting
and
you up.
yeah, He lifted me up, meaning that I was in a situation personally and in that time, and so He knew. I can understand that he knew my situation. And so for my beginnings, it was tough. And so I feel like he lifted me up. He basically it says I can't remember where it says that the father will prepare a table with all your enemies.
Mm.
And so I feel like it came to that point where I in voluntarily stepped into his presence in a way, and he gave me access to his kingdom, and I didn't know what it meant. And little by little, as I learned, and as I took steps, some were big steps, and sometimes I took baby steps. But now Shabbat means to me everything. You know what I mean? It means, you guys know how obsessed I am with being better and
We love it, man. We love it.
honoring the Father and getting to know Him.
Rightly so, man.
Huh?
Rightly so, dude. Like
Yeah.
in just over 2 years, he changed your life, gave you a wife and a child and everything, and
Yeah. And
And
so
I feel
I
like
think that's the key. To
yeah,
For me, the key is after if he's letting me know Him.
Mhm.
I think the basics, and now the fire that I want to get to know Him a little deeper. He has
yeah,
given me a baby, and so I think the Shabbat for me now it means that I feel like I take the traditional, you could say, point from the Jewish people in the sense that I've learned with Walter about the what you can teach through the process of the kiddush. You know what I mean? How you can teach your son or your daughter how to connect with the Father in that process of the wine and the bread, and how the Shabbat you can connect it to creation, and you can build into your kids, your sons and mine, a pure understanding of what creation is, and a pure understanding of what Elohim is.
Mhm.
You are able to, in a way, bring a life into the world that is unbiased and is basically in a path or trajectory of truth. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So I think that the Sabbath and every day that I have, with my family that he has given me. It is a great opportunity for me to honor him and basically honor his name. So,
Jeez, man. Alex, man, you flexing on all of us. That was the best answer I've ever. Man. Just sitting with your baby being supreme.
Hey,
Whatever.
is
Whatever
that your
that-
bookcase?
Huh?
Is that your bookcase right there behind you?
No. Well, that bookcase has like the Shabbat stuff, but no, I have to. I'm gonna
Case,
get
you
like,
got the beats, man. I'm just flexing 24K.
He's gonna need a couple bookcases if he keeps
All
buying
day,
books.
bro.
That's
Easy
that's
now.
buying books.
Like,
look at what I got. Look at what I got.
Monetize
Check
your
this
yeah,
out.
bro.
Check this out.
Yeah, copyright struck.
Oh,
Andy,
look.
we got the
Yeah,
same
Mike.
thing. Over
Hello.
That's a
it's
good
it's
mic.
not as
Am I
cool
the-
here. That's what we got something similar.
Am I the only one who thinks that ebooks are better?
Yeah, probably. Actually, no. I like reading. I mean,
What was it? What did you say?
I don't know if
I
it's
think
better.
that
I
ebooks
just more
are better.
affordable.
Yeah.
What did you say?
And
I feel like
Ebooks
But
are
you know what's crazy? Just
Reading
a side note to
Kinda
our
the
podcast.
You still have to look at something and
like-
read it.
I don't know what
easier.
it is. I didn't ever think that I was gonna be at the level of desiring to have books like Rico and Walter do.
Yeah.
And Gabriel, like I go into Amazon, bro, and I see books and like I just go ballistic, bro. I have a list and I just have like and save like. I haven't bought them because I might get my wife might divorce me if I buy all these books.
Get it digitally, dude. It's like cheaper and easier.
Yeah, I started getting a couple digitally because I can't afford
Yeah.
this.
They're way cheaper.
Yeah, it's so
I saw
much.
Rico.
It's
Rico was
so
like,
much
Rico was like,
easier.
look, you should read this book. And I went to look it up. I was like, Rico, come on, man, you gotta give me something.
It gets you.
Yeah, get something I can, But
That's a good book, though, ain't it?
yeah,
It's a very good
really good book. That was a really good book.
It's worth the money. That's a lot of money.
I like the when he because Walter was talking about the I can't remember. Let me see. Let me find it. I'll find it real quick. Give me a second.
You gotta put a sticky note, man.
No.
All right, someone talk
Yeah,
while he's
someone-
looking for a paper. Talk while he's looking for the page.
Perfect. He's got that book, but he ain't even using the bookmark.
Wait. Look. So listen.
Bookmark.
It says when a sacred oath is broken, the violated sanctum is none other than the deed itself. Yahweh's name by which an oath is taken is called a sanctum. So basically, when you take an oath in His name, it represents the mere sanctum. So when you prophesize that you believe in Him and you take an oath in His name, you basically taking an oath on His sanctum. And it says Yahweh's name by which an oath is taken is called sanctum to Elohim's holy name. Moreover, desecration of the sanctum is simultaneously desecration of the covenant, because reverence for such sanctums is presumed in the covenantal relationship. Thus, the two categories of sacrilege are really one. Both are acts against the deity. So that was pretty deep.
Good. It's real good. Wow.
Well,
I think it's just about time, right? I think we've exhausted our topics for this episode.
yeah, I
That's
think
Wrap, everybody. We did
we
it.
should end. So
Hey,
this is episode 2.
I hope we have Russell and Oscar
Yes.
again.
Oh yeah,
Yeah, you guys are awesome.
it was great. We
It
gotta
was
select
fun.
like more guests.
We're missing Daniel and Asaj.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you're out there, get on
Out there, they'll be coming
Asaj.
soon.
Atash, if you're out there, we are waiting for you. Daniel, do not disappear, man.
All right.
All right, but I'm gonna end it here. We'll see you guys the next time. So
Thanks for watching, guys. Shalom.
Shalom.
bye.
Shalom.
Bye. Adios. Bye.
Keep long and prosper.